So, so yesterday we were uh, discussing about the load deflection curve for a column which is subjected to eccentric axial load. So, what we are doing is we are writing the equilibrium equation of the column in the deformed configuration. Usually, we don't account for the deformation of the column, but here we are looking at the deflected column, and then we are finding out what is the moment at any point, and from there we are relating the moment with the deflection. So there is some extra moment coming due to this deflection, that is delta minus p into delta minus y of x. So on top of p, there is some extra moment p into delta minus y of x. So this is a second. This is called the second order analysis. So we are accounting for the additional deflections, additional moments coming to those due to the deflection. Okay, so we found some solution for the deflection. It was a function of. You are able to see this one, right? Slender column, something like that.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay. So we have delta is equal to e into 1 minus cos pl by cos pl, and we plotted the delta as a function of small pl, and we found that it vary as pl varies from 0 to pi by 2, delta varies from 0 to infinity. That means it is blowing up at pl is equal to pi by 2. And we can find the bending moment, maximum bending moment, which is occurring at the base of the column. It is P secant PL. Usually, if you do a first order analysis, you will get bending moment as something like this. So, suppose you have this column, the axial, you have a column here, and you are subjected to some axial load P with the eccentricity E. So, we can split the problem into two parts. One is the axial load problem and the bending moment problem, and we can get here the stress is P by A, and here the stress is P by Z. Some P Z represents the section modulus. Okay, or M by I. So M by I by Y. So M by Z. Okay, so the maximum stresses occur here and here at the edges. So we can get that. This is for if you do the elastic first order analysis, this will be okay. But what you see here, the maximum bending moment is what P secant PL. So again, that PL is a function of the applied load P. So we are getting some extra contribution here. Usually, if you do a first order analysis, you will get only the bending moment, maximum bending moment will be P. But we are getting some extra contribution because we are doing a second order analysis. Okay, so the method of superposition cannot be used for this problem. So whenever for slender columns, we cannot use the method of superposition. That means if you want to calculate the deflection of this column, we cannot split it into two parts. So one is axial load and the other is bending moment. And the deflection due to bending moment you can find out, and deflection due to this we can find out, and you can add. This cannot be done for a slender column. For short column, probably it is okay, but for slender column, there is some extra terms coming, extra deflection happening due to the when you do the second order analysis. So axial force in conjunction with a bending couple produces not only compression but also an additional bending. That bending is that bending moment, extra bending moment is P into delta minus y of x for that column. So the deflection produced by the couple P entirely changes the character of the action of the axial load by causing it to have bending action as well as a compressive action. So when one load changes the action of the other load, it will be found that the final deformation cannot be obtained by the method of superposition. So here there is some interaction going on between the bending moment and the axial load. That's why we cannot equate the sum to be equal to this one. Okay, so we cannot split into two parts here for this problem. And suppose you want to analyze a simply supported beam, so or simply supported column. So it is there's a pin connection here and there is a roller connection here, and there is some eccentric load being applied. So under the action of the eccentric load, the column will bend, and this is the deformed shape of the column. And you see that this is the line of symmetry, and this part, upper part, is a mirror image of the lower part. Okay, so there is this is the line of symmetry. And what we can do here is that we can look only at this upper portion and see that it looks like a cantilever. So you can see that at this point A, the slope is 0, and as you go further and further, deflection is increasing. So this problem can be treated as as a cantilever problem with the length of the column equal to L by 2. And the load acting is P, the eccentricity is E, and the deflection at the farthest end, the free end, is delta. So instead of L, we will have to use L by 2 for this problem. So delta will be E into 1 minus cos P L by 2 by cos P L by 2. So, and the maximum bending moment will be P secant P L by 2. So that is L by 2 term. We are replacing L with L by 2. Okay, so this is, we don't have to do the analysis one more time. We can use this simplification, that symmetry, and then we can treat this as a cantilever problem and get the solution for the deflections and the maximum bending moment. Maximum bending moment here, it will occur at the center. Okay, so that maximum bending moment is P secant PL by 2. And this I don't want to go through this, because actually there is a maximum stress, which will be the combination of compressive stress and the applied bending moment into y by I. So the applied moment is m, and y by I we replace I by a, I by y, so it will be z. So at the far we have to y at the extreme ends will be h by 2, and from there we get this expression. But I didn't deal with this, so there's I'll not go through it in detail, because I had to again do combined bending and axial load problem. So, but I just written it. So okay, now again we'll come back to the cantilever, that column, and see what analyze it one more time. So here we have the length of the column L, fixed T is at the bottom, and we are applying that P load. So as small PL tends to pi by 2, the deflection delta goes to infinity. So we can see this in the graph. As PL reaches pi by 2, the delta will blow up and it is tending to infinity. So we can find out the P, the applied load P corresponding to that pi by 2 value. So that is square root of P by EI times L is pi by 2, and P is equal to pi square EI by 4L square. So this value, the value of P at this location, we call it as P critical. So we are denoting by CR the critical term. We are writing it in the subscript. P critical is equal to pi square EI by 4L square. Okay. So we are squaring it. So it will be pi square by 4, and L square will be in the denominator, and EI will be in the numerator. So for this column, the critical load is pi square EI by 4L square. So why it is called critical load, we'll discuss it in the next slide, but now we'll just go through some derivation. So we have our equation for deflection, delta is equal to E into 1 minus cos small PL by cos PL. We write this equation in terms of P critical and capital P. Okay, so applied load capital P and the P critical load. So for that we'll do some algebra kind of work. So small p is equal to square root of P by A. So we divide and multiply by square root of P critical. So we'll get square root of P by P critical into square root of P critical by EA. And P critical is pi square EA by 4L square, and 1 by A is there. So EA and EA will cancel out. We'll get pi by 2L. So small p in terms of P and P critical is square root of capital P by P critical into pi by 2L. And small pl is square root of P by P critical into pi by 2. So L and L, we'll send the L to the left hand side, it will be PL, and we get this term. So we are writing the deflection in terms of the applied load P and the critical load, that is the load at which the deflection will reach an infinite value. So when P is equal to P critical, this term in the denominator P by P critical will be 1, and cos pi by 2 is 0. So this value is going to 0 denominator, so delta will go to infinity. Okay. So we are writing this delta is equal to E. So what we can do, we can plot this function. We can plot delta versus P by P critical in the next graph. So before going there, we introduce the term gyration. So radius of gyration is square root of I by A. Okay, so we can, I think we have done that in engineering mechanics. So K is equal to square root of I by A, and the units of radius of gyration is length. So this I is millimeter power 4, A is millimeter square. So I by A is millimeter square, square root is millimeter. So the radius of gyration, the dimension is length. So we plot, we divide this equation delta and on the left hand side and right hand side by K, the radius of gyration. So we get this equation like this: delta by K is equal to E by K into 1 minus that term and by cos of that term. So we are plotting a graph of delta by K on the x-axis and P by P critical on the y-axis. Okay. We are assuming some value for E by K, that is eccentricity by the radius of gyration of the cross section. Okay, so what we get is, so if we can take a value for E by K is equal to 0.01. Okay, that is 1 by 100, and we plot a graph. The graph is coming like this. So what is happening? As you increase the P value, the deflection is increasing, and after some time the deflection, as the P value approaches P critical, the deflection is increasing by a very high amount. Okay, it is going to increase at a very rapid, it will increase very rapidly and try to go to infinity kind of thing. And if you reduce the eccentricity of the loading, then the initial deflections are reduced. Okay, the slope is increased, that means the deflection is reduced. For the same load, the deflection is less. Okay, if you look at the rightmost curve and the left and the mid curve, you see if for a given applied load, so if you apply a load here 0.5, the deflection is say here 0.0105, but if for E by K is equal to 0.005, that is the problem with lower eccentricity, the deflection is reduced. Similarly, if you reduce the E by K to still smaller value, that means the eccentricity is very less. That means the load is acting very, very close to the centroid. Then the deflections are further reduced. But what happens is, as the load approaches the critical value, the P critical, the solution of that deflections will increase at a very rapid rate. Okay, until this point it is very linear increase is there, but once we approach the P critical load, the deflections are rising up very rapidly. Okay, so this is the study. This is the analysis we can get from the looking at these graphs. So I'm summarizing those and that analysis in again one more time here. So as eccentricity E decreases, so as E value decreases, the deflection delta becomes smaller and smaller. So these deflections are reduced. The curve approaches closer and closer to the vertical axis. So as we decrease the E, the curve is getting closer and closer to this axis, y-axis. And secondly, the deflections increase rapidly as the load P approaches the critical value. So as P increases and we reach the P critical, the deflections are blowing up. They are increasing at a very rapid rate. Okay. So and another thing we can see is that all curves have the horizontal line P by P critical is equal to 1 as a asymptote. So as we increase the P value, this line will start to move asymptotically towards the horizontal line, and similarly this curve, this mid curve also will try to move asymptotically towards the this P by P critical is equal to 1, and as you increase the load. So all these curves have the horizontal asymptote as P by P critical is equal to 1. Okay, so this is a theoretical value. If you look at this is a theoretical graph which you get from this analysis. So we are plotting delta by K versus P by P critical here. And why is it important? People have done some experiments and they found similar results. So here some more things you can summarize. Irrespective of how small the eccentricity E may be, very, very large deflections are produced if the load P is sufficiently close to the critical value. And if the deflection becomes large, so when the load P approaches P critical, the deflections become large, and therefore the bending moment and the stresses also will increase. Okay. And here what is that? Eccentricities are unavoidable in the compression testing of columns. So when you test a column, it is highly difficult to apply the load exactly at the centroid of that column. There will be some eccentricities. We cannot achieve a perfect loading in the column. So eccentricities are unavoidable, and so the load P consequently produces both compression and bending. Okay, so if you look at the experiments which were done by some scientists, so there is some guy Tatmajan, this guy is Von Karman, and some guy MPA Dalam. So these people have done some testing on columns. So this is a column of length L, and they subjected it to some axial load, and they have the eccentricity is E. That is the center line, the axis of the column is this dash dot line, and there is some eccentricity E. So they have tried to reduce the eccentricity of the column, eccentricity of the loading, and this guy has reduced it to certain extent. Karman has reduced it to very great extent, and MPA Dulam has reduced to a very higher extent. So the P was very much close to this for the blue curve. The green points were probably little to the right, and red was still farther right. This one is very farthest from the center line. So the experimentally they have verified this behavior of columns. So they found that with increasing eccentricity, the curves were getting closer and closer to the vertical line, and as the load reaches the critical load, that is a critical stress here, they write sigma by sigma critical. So as the load reaches the critical stress, the deflections are blowing up. Okay, so the deflections are increasing very rapidly. Okay, so this is regarding the experimental testing, which confirms the theory that whatever theory which was developed is close to the experimental trend. Okay, so what they observed is as the load approaches P critical or sigma approaches sigma critical, they found that the reflections are increasing rapidly, and the columns are loaded beyond the elastic limit of the material. So the column will lose its practical usefulness. So when P approaches P critical, the stresses are very high, and they cross the elastic limit, and the column will not be able to take further loads. So P is equal to P critical can be considered to be the ultimate load, which will produce complete failure of the column. So that is a significance. So when you load the column, as P reaches P critical value, it will fail completely, and the material in the column will yield and cannot take further loads. Okay, so for design, P is equal to P critical is treated as the ultimate load in columns. Okay, so this is one major result. Suppose you want to find what is P critical for this simply supported beam. So the diffracted shape is shown here. There will be no deflections at the pinned connections. There will be maximum deflection at this center line, and center line, the radius of that dy by dx, here it will be pi by 2, so it will be in the vertical direction at this point, midpoint. So we can this will be the line of symmetry of the reflected curve. So we can treat the upper part, the part above the line of symmetry, to be in this fashion. So there the slope we can treat it to be 0. So here we treat this as x-axis, so the slope there is 0, and we have that applied load P, and that P is the P critical. So for P critical for this this what is this? So cantilever will be pi square EA by 4L square. So L will be L by 2. So it will become pi square EA by L square. So the critical load for this cantilever for this simply supported beam with length L is pi square EI by L square. That is the length of the column in the denominator, and in the numerator it will have pi square EI. Okay. So square of the length of the column in the denominator and numerator pi square EA. We can derive this thing in a different way, that is using stability considering the adjacent equilibrium. I will do that if we have time in this class, or maybe on Thursday. Okay, so this is a critical load for this cantilever. For this cantilever beam, it is already known, and for this simply supported beam, it is pi square A by L square. Suppose I will take a small break, and again I will come back. So you are able to hear, right?
Yes.
So here we see a column which is fixed at the bottom and at the top, and this column is subjected to some load P, axial load P, but the axial load is not exactly acting on the center line. There is some eccentricity. So as a result, there will be some bending action coming into the column, and as a result of the bending action, the column will bend in this fashion. Okay. So the slope at the top and the slope at the bottom will be 0, and then this column will curve in this way, and again it regains its original 0 slope there. So there are some points, you can see the point at this point, which is the point of inflection. There will be a change in the curvature, so d square y by dx square will go from positive to negative, and here again there is a point of inflection, so there is a change in curvature, d square y by dx square will go from negative to positive. So you can treat this as sagging, and this can be hogging, and again it will go to sagging. So the point of inflection is located at distance of L by 4 here from the top, and from the bottom it is again located at distance L by 4. The point here, the center point will have like the maximum deflection, and the distance again is L by 4 from this point of inflection. Okay, so what we can do with this deflected shape analysis is that we can treat the portion of the column from the bottom end to the first inflection point. We can treat it to be like a cantilever beam. So we have this fixed support, and we have the portion of the column up to the inflection point. So this P value, which is acting at eccentricity of E, so that is this critical bend max. So for this problem, we can find the P critical value by finding the P critical for this cantilever. So P critical will be pi square EA by 4 L square. So L will be L by 4. So L by 4 will be L by L square, whole square will be L square by 16. So it will be 4 pi square EA by L square. So for this column with fixity at both the top part and the bottom part, for a span of length L, the critical buckling load is 4 pi square EI by L square. So this column will have a higher critical buckling value compared to a simply supported column, that is a pin connection column. Okay. Why? Because of these restraints. These restraints will provide some kind of stability to the column, and as a result, the critical buckling load is increased. Okay, so again we'll look at this in a different way, where we'll look at it from an Euler buckling load perspective, and we'll say that this is the effective length. The distance between the two inflection points is effective length, and we'll solve it in a different way, maybe in this class only, I think. Okay, so next idea is regarding the eccentricity. So yesterday we were discussing about eccentricity of the load P. So the load P can lie on the y-axis or it can lie on the z-axis. So here it is lying on the z-axis. So this column has eccentricity Ey. And in this column, I-shaped column, the load P is lying on the y-axis. So the eccentricity is with respect to the z-axis here. So eccentricity is easy. So for the first case, in this case, the bending will happen with respect to the y-axis, and in the second case, the bending will happen with respect to the z-axis. So yesterday we saw when the bending is happening with respect to the z-axis, uh, then the moment of inertia will take the value for I will be IZZ, and here the bending is happening with respect to the y-axis, so moment of inertia will be IYY. So I'm sketching the top view here. So this is the top view. I think it's little yeah. In the top view, we are seeing that the bending action is with respect to the y-axis. Okay, and as a result, our I for bending will be IYY. That is moment of inertia with respect to the y-axis. And for the second case, the bending is with respect to the z-axis. So we are taking this is the g-axis and bending is happening with respect to it. So we have I value will be IZZ. That is moment of inertia about the z-axis. So there will be two different critical buckling loads according to the eccentricity, whether the column is eccentrically loaded with respect to the y or with respect to the z-axis. So depending on that, there will be two critical buckling loads. So we can calculate the critical buckling load for eccentricity with respect to the y axis. So the pi square Iyy by 4L square. Assuming this is a fixed beam, so there is fixity at the bottom and free at the top. So it will be pi square E by Iy by 4L square. And for this column, here bending action is with respect to the z-axis. So we have pi square Izz by 4L square. So for design, we have to choose the critical load for buckling, and that value will take it as minimum of these two. The smaller of these two values will be taken as the critical buckling load. Okay. So what it means is that when you're loading the column with unknown eccentricity, so the column can fail by bending about the y-axis, or it can fail by bending about the z-axis. That means it can bend. In this case, it will bend either in the it will bend towards the z-axis. Means it will rotate away from you, and here this part will rotate in this in the other way, in this fashion. It will rotate along the y, and this part will rotate towards z. Okay, so it can fail in different way, and the smallest value where it will fail will be dictated by these values. The smaller of these will be the will have higher chance of failing in that fashion. Okay, so if you see here, the smaller the I value, the lower is the P critical. So probably it will fail in the direction where the moment of inertia is lower. So for this case, I section Iyy usually will be higher than Izz. So it will fail more by this lateral bending. Okay, so bending about the z-axis. This column might fail. I beam can fail in the lateral by lateral bending rather than being in the. Okay, so this is regarding the choice of moment of inertia which we have to use to calculate the critical buckling loads. And so we'll go to the next topic. Okay. So we are going to the next topic here. So we are looking at the stability of structure. So in the previous case, we had done a full scale analysis and we have found the critical buckling loads and all. here we'll do a different approach to calculate the critical working loads. Okay, so that approach, the basics of it I will discuss now. So we have here two rods, AC and BC. These two rods are connected at junction C by a torsional spring. So the torsional spring has spring constant K. So when you say K refers to Gj by L, but you can say the torsion T is equal to K times theta. Okay, that is the simplest form. Just like P is equal to K delta, we can have torsion is equal to, that is a torque is equal to K times theta. So that is regarding this torsion constant. And we are applying a load P at the top. So this is a pin connection, and here at the bottom we have a pin connection. So under the action of the load, usually what can happen is, if the load P is perfectly along the line ACB, then there will be pure compression in the AC and pure compression in BC. But however, during the loading process, sometimes C can move a little to the right, depending if the load is not applied perfectly, then there can be some movement towards the right or towards the left. Okay, so let's assume that the point C is moving slightly to the right, and we have the applied load P. So when it moves slightly to the right, the question we want to ask is whether the coil will come back to its original straight position, or will it continue to move to the right? So that is a question we want to answer. So let's say we move the point C by a small amount delta to the right, and under the action of load P, will the point C will return back to its original position, or will it go further and further to the right? So that question we want to answer.
10 seconds later.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I think words are, so you move C slightly to the right. So when you move C slightly to the right, then this is the deformed configuration. Okay, so this is the deformed configuration, and the rod AC is deflecting by delta theta here, and rod BC is deflecting by delta theta. So the total change in angle ACB will be 2 delta theta. Okay. So the spring will produce a restoring moment. This P will try to move the point C to the right, and the torsional spring will try to restore it back to the original configuration. So we have to do a free body diagram and see how it happens. So the main question we want to ask is this one. We move C slightly to the right. So each rod forms an angle theta with a vertical. So there are two possibilities. First possibility is, will the system return to its original position, or will it move further to the right away from the original position? So if the system returns to its original position, then it is called stable, and if it doesn't return, if it goes farther and farther to the right, then it is unstable. So we have to look at the free body diagram to answer this question, whether the restoring moment is sufficient for the column to return to its original position. So we draw the free body diagram for this portion AC. So that free body diagram we are drawing here. So the point C has moved to the right here, and we have that load acting downward direction. So at point C, there will be equal and opposite force P acting in the upward direction, and there will be some restoring moment coming from the torsional spring. That restoring moment is denoted by M. So this P and this P form a couple. They will they will produce a anti-clockwise moment, and which will try to move C farther and farther to the right, and M is the restoring moment produced by the torsional spring. Okay, so as long as, so we can find what is the M value. M is equal to K times the change in angle of the spring. So change in angle is 2 delta theta. So M value is K times 2 delta theta. So here, if you draw the if you find the moment equilibrium about point C. So the overturning moment is obtained by this P into this lever arm, that is L by 2 sine delta theta. So that is the overturning moment, P into L by 2 sine delta theta. Restoring moment is this coming from the torsional spring, that is K into 2 delta theta. So as long as the restoring moment is greater than the overturning moment, as long as the restoring moment M is greater than the overturning moment which is coming due to that force P, this system will be stable. That means this point C will come back to its original position. Check the condition for stability, that the restoring moment exceeds is always that is the overturning moment is less than the restoring moment. So P into L by 2 sine del theta is less than K into 2 del theta. So we are looking at very small deflections. So we can instead of sine del theta, we can approximate it to be small del theta. So P into L by 2 del theta is less than K into 2 del theta. So we get the value P should be less than 4KL. So as long as the applied load P is less than this value, the system will be stable. That means if P is a value less than 4KL, then if you move the point a little bit to the left or to the right, it will come back to its original position. So if you move to the right and P is less than 4KL, the restoring the spring will be force will produce a moment such that it will come back to its original configuration. But if P exceeds 4KL, then if you move if the point is slightly to the right, then it will continue to deflect to the right. The spring will not be able to restore it back to its original position. I think spring constant you can treat yeah, this is okay. You can treat like this problem can be explained in a different way also. You can put a spring here and analyze it. I think there in some textbooks it will be done like that. Okay, so in this problem we are using a spring. What we can do, we can have a yeah, how to imagine it. So you can imagine a column with the pin connection at the bottom. At the free end, there are two springs, one to the left and other to the right. And you are applying a load P at the top. So in that case, if you move the spring, the top, the free end, where there are two springs, we move it to the right, then there will be restoring moment from both the springs. One spring will be in tension, so it will try to pull it towards the left. Other spring will be in compression, so it will try to again push it to the left. So there will be some, you can analyze that in that fashion also, but here we are analyzing spring problem. Maybe I can give some homework where you can do that analysis later. Okay, so this is regarding stability. So as long as P is less than 4KL, the system is stable, and if P exceeds 4KL, then it is unstable. And we have P critical is 4KL. So here we are analyzing this position is a state of equilibrium. The perfect straight line position is a state of equilibrium, and we can have equilibrium in this configuration also. When P is equal to 4KL, again this position is in a state of equilibrium. Okay, that we have found. So we are analyzing this equilibrium in this position, that is straightforward. Sigma is equal to P by A, and we are analyzing equilibrium in this position. And for that position, we are looking into the stability, whether the system will come back to its original position or it will be go further to the right. So we'll try to do a similar thing for the simply supported column in the next analysis. So this is a standard thing which you can see in any textbook. So we have here the column which is simply supported, and there are load P, which is the actual load P acting on this column. So you can cut a section anywhere in between, then the system will be in equilibrium, and the stress anywhere will be sigma is equal to P by A. So this is one position of equilibrium. Now there can be alternate position of equilibrium. That means under the action of load P, the system can have a equilibrium position in this fashion also. It can be in equilibrium under bending. So we want to analyze and at what load the column will go into bending mode. So as you keep initially load is 0, and as you keep increasing the load, the stress in the bar will increase. As you keep further increasing the stress, at certain point what will happen is the column will try to bend, okay, and that bending is shown here. So we want to find what is the value of P at which the column will bend. Will go into the bending action. Instead of compressive mode, it will go into bending mode. So we want to find what is that P value where the bending will happen. Okay, so if you, it's little similar to this one. Here you can keep applying the load P. So this entire thing will be under the state of compression. But as you keep increasing P at certain value, deforming in the straight compressive mode, it can bend. Okay, there can be some C can move to the right or to the left. So we want to find what is that value P where it will move to the right or left. So to do the analysis, first we'll look into the deformed this bending mode, and we'll analyze it for equilibrium. Okay, so we define our axis, y-axis like this, x-axis in this fashion, in the downward direction, and at a distance x we cut a section, and we are looking into the free body diagram. So we have the load P acting downward. So at the cut portion we have the vertical force P, which will balance this load P, and there is some bending action, that is M of x. So P prime into this lever arm plus M of x is 0. Okay, so this distance is y of x. So we are applying moment equilibrium over this surface. So M of x plus P y of x is 0. So M of x is minus P y of x. So we know M of x, that is the bending moment M, is related to the deflection y using this expression M of by this relation. M of x is ei d square by dx square. So ei d square by dx square is minus P y. So we can send ei, the flexural rigidity term, to the denominator, and this entire term you can send to the left hand side. So you get d square y by dx square plus P y by I is 0. So this is the equilibrium equation for this bent configuration. So here we see that P is not known, and this is a second order equation. And what else we have? Yeah, I think that's fine. So here we again introduce our small p term. So small p is square root of P by A. So P square will be P by A. So d square y by dx square plus P square y is 0. So for this problem we have actually done some analysis. So we have a homogeneous solution, y is equal to C1 cos px plus C2 sin px, and apply the boundary conditions. There are two constants, C1 and C2. So to find the constants, we have to apply the boundary conditions. So it's a pin connection, so that there will be 0 deflection at the top and 0 deflection at the bottom in the y direction. So y of 0 is 0, or y of 0 is 0, and y of L is 0. So we have here y of 0 is 0, that means substitute x is 0 here, so it will be cos p 0, cos 0, it will be 1, so we'll have C1, and C2 sin 0 will be 0, so there is no contribution there. So C1 will be 0, and y of L is 0 implies 0 is equal to C2 sin PL. Now we can have two things, one, either C2 is 0 or sin PL is 0. So if C2 is 0, what will happen? We know C1 is 0 and C2 0 means we'll get y is equal to 0. That is a trivial solution, that is a straight line configuration. That is the equilibrium position corresponding to this straight configuration. Here the deflections y is 0. So we will not, this doesn't have much of significance here. And we can have sin PL is 0, and sin PL will be 0. So this term sin PL can be 0. So what it means is sin PL, sin phi, sin 2 phi, sin 3 phi, sin 4 phi, all are 0 terms. So PL can take values of n phi. So n can be 1, 2, 3 like that. So we have small p is square root of p by ei l is equal to n phi. So p is equal to ei n phi by l whole square. So that is the p value where the solution is bifurcating into a bending mode. Bifurcating is a new term. I will explain it maybe next time in the next slide. Okay, so the beam is going from a straight configuration to a bending configuration at this value. Okay, so this value of ei n pi by l square, it is going to the bending mode. So the smallest value will use. So we'll use n is equal to 1. Okay, and if you use n is equal to 1, we get the PCR, P critical, which is pi square ei by l square. So we're substituting n is equal to 1. So n square is 1. So we add pi square ei by l square. So this formula is called Euler formula. So this gives a critical buckling load for the column. So this was invented or discovered. I think it was discovered by Euler. I think one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. So he has got this formula pi square ei by l square, and yeah, and we can find out what is the corresponding small p value for this configuration for n is equal to 1. So it will be square root of pi, p critical by I. So p critical by ei is pi by l. So for that, the elastic curve will be y is equal to c2 sine p1x. So p1 is pi x by l. So this is the deflected shape, and we don't know what is c2 value here. Still we don't know the c2 value. We can just get the p critical here. That is a load at which the column will go into a bending mode. So now I'll introduce that term. I introduced one term, bifurcation. So I'll try to explain it. So this is a bifurcation diagram I'm showing here. So on the x-axis we have the maximum deflection, which is occurring at the center of the column. On the y-axis we have the P, the applied load. So I have identified certain points here, A and another point B. Point A refers to P critical 1, that is n square pi square by L square, ei by L square for n is equal to 1. B refers to n square pi ei by L square for n is equal to 2. So n is equal to means 2 square, it will be 4. Okay, so point A, point B are the critical buckling loads. First critical buckling load, second critical buckling load. So for a perfect column, that means a column with zero eccentricity, that means the applied load is exactly acting at the centroid. For a perfect column, the behavior will be like this. It will go from O to A, and at A, what will happen? That means from O to A, there will be no deflection. The column will just compress. Okay, so from O to A, there will be pure compression happening. And when P reaches this pi square ei by L square, then the solution will go into bending mode. There will be rapid bending happening at P is equal to P critical. So at P is equal to P critical, the solution goes from a compression mode to a bending mode, and it goes in a very rapid fashion. That means Y max will increase for the same value of P. It will continue to increase. Okay. So this OA to OA is for perfect compression in the column, and A to A1 is the bending mode which is happening. So, but usually columns are not loaded with zero eccentricity. There will be some imperfection, imperfection loading. There will be some eccentricities. As a result, we had our experimental curves, which are represented by the green curve. Experimental curves where the p value will keep increasing. As p value increases, the y will increase, and as it approaches p critical, there will be rapid change in the deflection. And here for zero eccentricity, for high eccentricities, we have this top green curve. So the value will approach this green curve will approach the vertical axis, and at the critical buckling values, there will be rapid deflection. And as eccentricity increases, the curve will transform to the mid curve, and then it transform to the bottommost green curve. Okay, so this is with increasing eccentricity is happening. So in reality, the columns will be loaded with some eccentricity. As a result, the experimental curves will be like this. Mathematically, what will happen is, if the column is perfectly straight and if there is zero eccentricity in the loading, then it will be loaded up to OA in perfect compression, and at point A it will go into a bending mode. Okay, so from O to A, then A to A1 there will be a bifurcation. So that point is called the bifurcation point, and the column will go into bending mode here. But usually in experiments there will be this kind of behavior where I will have this green color kind of behavior. So this is regarding the bifurcation point. When can we get the second mode of failure? Is that there is another? I think I will not go into the details. Okay, so this is regarding the bifurcation diagram. So yeah, I think we have discussed this idea that which way it will fail. Suppose you are loading this column, I-shaped column. So whether it will fail about the y-axis or it will fail about the z-axis. The value of the moment of inertia about the y-axis and value of moment of inertia of the z-axis. So smaller value, whichever has a smaller value, there is a higher chance for buckling in that direction. So buckling takes place about an axis with smaller I value. Peak minimum of pi square EI by L square or pi square EI GG by L square. Okay, so I think we have discussed this idea before beginning this stability analysis. Okay, so I think we have some time. We can discuss this in the
Buckling means bending.
No, buckling. But buckling is for this column. It is we are applying the axial load, and at certain point the column will prefer to go into a bending mode. Okay,